Good morning to you, Jen, and it's great to have a chat with you here today. So, congratulations. I believe you've just published your first book. And I say first book because I'd say there's more in you. Self-Employed, the Forgotten Community. It's absolutely
Yeah,
gorgeous. It's quite weighty,
it's
actually, isn't it?
it's lovely. Yeah, first of all, thanks for the call. Yeah, this is actually Valentia Island, where I was born and reared. So, like, our house would be to the back of this here, and then you have looking up the bay there to Carsavine, all that. So, yeah, there's a touch of home. Yes, I live in Tralee now with my family, extended family, grandchildren, the lot. But this is where I'm actually from, Village Island. That lighthouse is very close to our home. Uh, Beautiful place to visit or stay, live. It's gorgeous down there. So
Okay.
yeah,
And what actually inspired you to write this book in the first place?
the the thinking behind the book, if you look at the title, is self-employed, the forgotten community, right? I'm self-employed 45 years. Um, I tried being implied in the middle of that, and I only lasted, I don't know, until I found out that I was unemployable. I went back being self employed again. But I think a lot of it stemmed from the devastation we had in 2008, where I saw firsthand self employed people making the ultimate sacrifice. Like there was absolute devastation there. And it was then I got into working with the self employed. Uh, I had a lot of experience in the sector, but I also, the real experience wasn't that I went to college for a year or wasn't that I was on so many courses. It was that I made so many mistakes and I went down so many cul-de-sacs that were very, very costly. Making mistakes, people say, well, you learn by your mistakes. That's very expensive, learning by your mistakes. So why not learn from my mistakes? I made an awful lot of mistakes. Colleagues around me made a lot of mistakes. But the one good thing we did, Orla, was we learned from each of those mistakes. We turned it into a learning and we didn't repeat it. Some people make a mistake and they make it again and again and again. All my colleagues around me, all self employed, no, we made a mistake, we learned from it, and we moved on. The other side is that I am dyslexic, and one of the positives about being dyslexic, apparently, is you have the ability to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go again. Because by nature of the nature of dyslexic, things don't come naturally to you. I went to school with guys like, and they just flew through primary school, secondary school, college. And they'd study 3 weeks before an exam, like, and then ace it, just absolutely sickening. And, you know, I couldn't do that. But it was the dyslexia. And if I was asked, would I change anything? I would say no, because I find one of my real strengths is being creative, but being creative for my clients, giving them a bit of blue sky thinking that they wouldn't have thought of. And it isn't that I'm any better than them. Like, nobody knows their business better than the self employed person. They really know their business. But if you have someone that can come in and do a bit of blue sky thinking on their behalf, it makes a lot of sense. So that's a roundabout way of answering your question. Why did I write the book? The learnings, you know.
Okay. And why do you call self-employed the forgotten community?
Oh God, yeah. It stemmed to a story that back in the dreaded 2008, I remember this person. He was a very honest guy, had a small farm holding back in Dingle. And he decided during the Celtic Tiger, he decided that he'd set up a little business doing and PVC soffit and fascia, right? And he employed his next door neighbor who was struggling a bit. He employed him to help him. And the business was going very well. He did everything right. He formed a limited company. He got all his taxes paid. He everything above board. Ran a really good business. Next thing, the crash in 2008. He couldn't keep going. But I remember he told me he came in to the social welfare office to see what they'd be entitled to and all that. And he went to his accountant, and the accountant said, well, you must pay redundancy. So he had to go to the credit union to borrow money to pay the redundancy for his neighbour. And then he actually, the morning he came into the social welfare office, he picked up the neighbour in his car and they all drove in. And the two of them went up to the window and see what they were entitled to. So the neighbour, the employee, he went first, and he got a stack of entitlements, an absolute stack of entitlements. And he went away, he moved on, and then the guy who had the business was next up to the window. Sorry, nothing for you. I will never forget the devastation of that man. He tried everything. He was above board. He paid his taxes. He did on time. He paid the redundancy for the neighbour to save face, everything. And he got absolutely nothing. So again, we see the protests of late. Self-employed people get no break. I even saw last night, we're looking at two people that had music school in Waterford. You might have seen it on the news, where their school burned down. And the first thing they said, as while they were interviewed by RTE, is that, well, as self-employed people, we have no comeback whatsoever. Yes, they have insurance and that kind of stuff, but as self-employed people, they have nothing. Wow. So they are really the forgotten community. And 98% of self-employed people in this country employ 2/3 of the workforce. And like when I was writing this book, I didn't want it to be a book mourning the fact that they're forgotten. I wanted to try and say, okay, if the powers that be forgot you, we can work together and we can help each other. That's why the proceeds of this book go to Kerry Mental Health, because the mental pressures that self-employed people are under is enormous, because self-employed people tend to work alone. They might have staff, they might have people around them, but they work alone, because a self-employed person, they're different. They are wired differently. They're very creative for a start. It's hard to understand them because what's in their head is a way beyond, we'll call them the normal person. And, they're the early risers. They're the risk takers. They sign the front of the check, not the back. They hate bureaucracy. They wouldn't go looking for grants because it's just the paperwork, the time it takes, and all the permutations that come with it. They go, look, I'll do it myself. So they work alone. Now, if you're working alone, you're going to have an internal pressure. I know it myself. 2005, I ended up in the Bonds Hospital in Tralee here. And I had a pain in my back. And the surgeon looked at me, X-ray, MRI, all this kind of stuff. And he said, right, you have created a fireball in your stomach. And this comes from stress. If you keep doing what you're doing, that'll become cancerous. And I said, okay. And I made a change. I changed the way I was doing things. I was working 80 hours a week up on a hamster wheel. And then I decided to change. Now, Orla, it took me a long time to change, because you might have it in your head that you're going to change, but you're not actually changing anything. I remember way back in the day, I was playing in wedding bands and functions and all that. And I remember playing in New Year's Eve. I used to play keyboards, and every New Year's Eve we'd sing. The band would sing, play Auld Lang Syne, and I'd say to myself, because I hated playing in bands, hated it, but it was a means to an end. But I'd say every New Year's Eve, okay, this is going to be my year. I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to have a really good day job. In other words, right? No difference. And it took me a long time to realize what I was doing wrong. Up here, I was changing, but I was physically changing nothing to move the dial. You know what I mean? So, like, you must make a change, to move that dial. So, yeah.
That's interesting because an awful lot of time people say, oh, the problem is all in your mind. But you're saying really that, yes, you have to get this sorted, but you have to take action. And your book is very much about taking action, is it not?
It is. It's practical ways of, doing things. Like, even, without getting into the whole book, there's a couple of things in there that I really encourage people to do. For instance, people say, I have 45 emails I haven't opened yet, right? And time management, okay? And I looked at that one time, and these back and forth emails, right? So, for instance, I email you, Orla, can I meet you next Tuesday at 10 o'clock to discuss this upcoming project? Orla comes back and she says, can't do Tuesday, I can do Wednesday at 12. I come back, sorry, can't do 12 on Wednesday. See what's happening here? Before you know it now, you have a 5 and 6 email thread of back and forth, right? And unfortunately, one of the two of us is going to drop the ball. I'm going to forget to go back to you to confirm the actual time. But that is 5 or 6 emails now of complete waste of time. Whereas with modern technology, I will just simply send you my Calendly link and say, Orla, hop on there and pick a time that works for you, and we'll meet about this upcoming project. Boom.
Done.
Done. Now, a very small change, but that small change saved me 4 hours a week. Now, that's Friday afternoon sorted. And the other thing I would say that I've learned, if you do something to change, and we'll say you're now saving 4 hours a week, spend it on yourself or your family. Or don't take on more work because you're after saving 4 hours. Reward yourself. Reward yourself. And as a result of making changes like that, I haven't worked on Friday since 2019. All because incorporating modern technology, all that, right? The other one, I won't get into the whole book, but the other thing that really resonates with me is marketing your business in today's world, especially since COVID. We have all this modern technology. It's never been easier to get your message out there, but it's never been harder to get someone to listen. So what I'm saying in the book is stop. What exactly do I do? Why do I do it? Who do I do it for? Have I the right product mix or service for that market? And does my business suit, does the business model suit my lifestyle? And what I want people to do is, rather than this broad stroke marketing and getting stressed about getting more clients or maybe even getting better clients, stop. What exactly do I do? What lane am I in? I've had tremendous success with businesses by redefining their lane. And like, was it down to me? No, it was me asking the questions and the business owner going, yeah, you're right. I'm actually we're in the wrong lane. You know, we had we've a very good client, and they were in the safety training business, and they were, well, training. right? But they could never break a certain ceiling in terms of turnover. And when I asked them, why did you get into business in the first place? They told me the story. And I got a eureka moment that made me realize, guys, you're not in the training business, you're in the safety business. And they tripled their business just because they stopped, they thought about it, they planned, they implemented. And, people say to me, what's the first thing you do when you start with a new client? I said, get them to stop. That's the first thing I have to do is get them to stop. So, yeah.
Wow. What's really I'm taking from here is if you have the wrong business model, you're trying to push water uphill. And
Yeah.
there are probably many people out there don't realize that there should be a model around their business and that it has to work for them and their lifestyle. Not just so really being self-employed is not just about earning more money, but it's also about the whole lifestyle, to design a lifestyle that works for you and not you spending all your life working for your business.
Yeah. That that's a point, Orla. Like, you know, you remember at the start, I told you that I learned from my mistakes, right? We have two children, a boy and a girl, but I never remember our son growing up. I have no idea. And it just until I started making those changes, also learning the skills. You might be really good at what you do, but building a business around that skill is a different thing altogether. And people tend to put work first, and hopefully you'll have a lifestyle behind it, right? But what I'm saying is get your lifestyle first. And what I mean by lifestyle, I don't mean having the yacht in Barbados. I mean being there at your children's soccer games. You know, you off at 4 o'clock in the evening and go to that soccer match. Because for a 6 year old, I have three grandchildren, and even as late as last Saturday, that 4 year old was having his first soccer match. But he insisted we were all there, you know? And like it's because that was his big thing. So what I'm saying is get the lifestyle around you and your family, then bolt the business onto that to support that lifestyle. Not the other way around. Because it is your lifestyle. Then if you design your business model, an awful lot of people just don't have a business model. They just plow in and just keep going and keep putting out fires and up on that hamster wheel. And before they know, there's another year gone, another Auld Lang Syne sang. It's constant when they stop. But you must put your lifestyle first and then bolt the business on to that. And people maybe listening to this will say, yeah, it's all right for you, you know. But trust me, I have to earn money. People say, it's all right for you. I have to go and I have to earn money and all that. But what I found was when I got this stuff right, the bank balance was much healthier. The better bank balance is a result of getting this stuff right.
Fantastic. And what I liked, Dan, is you actually called in specialists to write certain chapters. Why was that?
Yeah, I genuinely had a real passion for writing something that someone self-employed could pick up during the ads. They could pick it up somewhere and they could read it, and it would genuinely help them. They could get, I could see, yeah, I could do that. They could pick up something in one of the chapters. But there are areas of expertise that I wasn't good at. Like, number one, I got a person to write on cash flow, accounts, bookkeeping, all that. I am hopeless at that. So I have no right to try and tell someone about bookkeeping because I don't know anything about bookkeeping. I am hopeless at anything like that. Most dyslexic people, right brain thinking, creative thinking, they're very bad at the other side. So I brought in A friend of mine, Anne Hannon, but Anne has a real passion for that. She has a real passion for getting the business owner to take control of their own finances, know their numbers. She has a real passion for that. Uh, I got in a good friend of mine, Carissa. Carissa's from Australia, but Carissa's real strength is how to better communicate with your audience. And then Joanne Morgan. Joanne, real passion for wellness. I'm a client of hers all the time. Joanne is brilliant at that. Alan McMahon, marketing in today's world. Alan is a fella, but with good solid head on his shoulders. And he appreciates self-employed people. He appreciates the struggles they can go through. But he writes a chapter about marketing in today's world, as opposed to what we traditionally know. Um, so he brought those experts in because they're areas I'm not good at, and I wanted to get one chance of genuinely helping self-employed. Like the proceeds are going to charity, but I genuinely, Orla, wanted some self-employed people to stop for 5 minutes and just pick some of the chapters, if they don't read it all, right? I wrote, I might be, a published author now, thanks to you, but I'm not great at reading books. So this is written for the likes of me, that I could pick up a chapter, and this book would be 4 or 5 pages. Then I have it broke down into 3 key takeaways, snappy. And that works for me. I'm that type of reader. And of course, we will be producing the audio version as well.
And I believe you have a downloadable workbook for anybody who purchases your book that they can email you with proof of purchase, and you will happily email them back the downloadable workbook, which reinforces the learning within the well, which is really an excellent companion guide.
It is, and I suppose I wanted the book to be about them, the reader. So if I'm talking about target market, and I'm talking about where I got it wrong, where I got it right, what you should do, all that. That chapter finishes then with 12 questions that the reader can ask themselves and try and answer. And then they could also, then if they wanted to go that step further, just quick email, and can you send me those questions in workbook format, and I can send it out to them, and they can walk away at home themselves.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And I suppose I've had the privilege of working with you, and you're not expecting me to say this now, but even the changes I have made in my business since I've started working with you, because I am also self-employed. Yes, I have a limited company, but as I say, the buck stops with me. The longer days, the worry, the stress, the trying to hold everything together and keep going, because us as self-employed people, we're doing this because we're passionate about what we do. It is so much
Yeah.
easier, you could say, to go and get a day job, go and be employed, and there's nothing wrong at all with being employed with a company. But if you have the mindset and the desire to be self-employed, the supports unfortunately aren't there for the government, so therefore we need to look elsewhere for the supports. And I must say that your book
Yeah.
is just like the lighthouse in your book, it's a beacon of light and hope for the self-employed community. And I just want to say thank you so much, Dan, for that.
Oh, you're welcome. There is one thing I would say there before we finish up, that you could, like yes, there now, you could be going as a self-employed book publisher. But what we are really growing now, and you're really creating traction now, is building a book business, which is a different thing completely, and you're doing a fantastic job.
Oh, well,
Really,
thank
really,
you.
really good.
So I would invite anyone to, if you're sitting on the fence, either one, reach out directly to Dan, or two, go and buy his book. It's at the moment it's available exclusively from buythebook.ie,
Yeah.
an amazing Irish independent
Oh yeah.
platform for independently published authors. Fantastic resource again, especially when all the profits for the book go directly to Kerry Mental Health. Again, it's fantastic. And Dan, one of the things that, and it is when we had this conversation around publishing book, you never wanted this book. This book was never about you, and you were very adamant. This is, I'm this for ego. This book is not about me. But when we said, but what if all your life lessons, all the things that went wrong, as you say, with your son growing up and not being there, what if other people can learn from your mistakes so they don't have to? And I do remember then you sat back and you reflected and you went, oh, I could definitely write about that because it was about you. You didn't feel it was a vanity project, and now your book is going to help so many other people. So I just want to say thank you for taking that leap of faith, and thank you for your this amazing to the self-employed community. Absolutely a very worthwhile read.
Yeah, and just for people that are self-employed and listening to this interview, well done. Well, no, you're taking, when you're self-employed, you're after taking control of your own destiny and that of your families. If you're employed, the one downside about being employed is that your destiny is in the hands of somebody else. Someone decides they're not going to use that marketing uh, team anymore and you're gone. So you've given away control of your own destiny. So well done to everyone that's self-employed and getting out there and trying their best.
Thank you so much, Dan. And again, just you want to hold up the book just so that we can see it again.
Ta-da!
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dan, for speaking with me today.
Thank you, Orland. Thanks for all your help.